What I would say is that, I mean, I was quite taken aback. I was quite surprised. And to a large extent, I was quite embarrassed because I really could not believe.
The PNM had one for 3 months. And if the police have been unable to gather the information, to change the intelligence into evidence, to charge, your only plan has to be to continue to roll states of emergency. But I am warning you, the population is not going to accept that. The population right now, you can feel the mood. I don't know where you all live and where you all interact with the population, but you just need to go outside onto the streets. You just need to listen to people in the groceries, in the markets, etc. The population is reaching a boiling point. I heard the member for Urupuch East refer to a short while ago and disparagingly talk to the members on this side who all are educated, properly educated, with their proper qualifications and understanding the history not only of Trinidad and Tobago, but the history of the globe. Refer to 1990. Jack Warner refers to 1990 here as well. We are reaching a point because it is all intertwined. You fire 48,000 of the most vulnerable citizens in our society. They have not been provided with jobs. They have no way to become employable easily and to have food on the table. And now you're suppressing the young people and telling them you can't go, you can't protest, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, locking up a young girl and her mother. Why is that necessary? Pull them aside, talk to them, say, listen, you don't do this, like the rest of everybody there. Right? It's a joke to you all. Everything was a joke for the member for Urupuchis. Nobody here is laughing. The citizens are not laughing.
I just finished listening to the Prime Minister's address or remarks at CARICOM, and a statement came to mind. Some of us don't even understand the powers and the influence we have as individuals and even as a country when we go out there at a regional level or international level. So some persons can say certain things and get away with it, but when you say it, it has ripple effects. While going through this speech, there were a lot of things that we could dissect, but I want to glean through because I don't want the content to be so long that they get lost in it. But watch this. We saw an issue being brought up condemning political parties within the region of coming to other member states and helping them with the elections or campaigning with them, and the Prime Minister was vehemently saying that is unacceptable. You can't come and expect us to be hug up because that's last week I saw you down the road and it was with this particular party. And I said, well, wait, but Prime Minister, there was a local government representative who was up the islands preaching you lose the code. So how come you could go to that CARICOM meeting and tell members that they shouldn't be doing that when you yourself had members within your party participating in the same action in which you are now condemning? That can begin to make sense. That's madness. So hold on. Do as I say, but don't do as I do. Come on, that doesn't augur well. We see it. As a matter of fact, we thought the yellow code was the virus going up the islands. And where that come from? So if we were to take your advice, then we will look at you and say, well, how come you could do it? While the whole speech seemed to be in alignment with US policy, and I personally didn't like how we treat Cuba, how we dealing with Cuba in this, I think more finesse needs to be done with Cuba. But then as we go along, there was something that I would agree with her upon in terms of when she spoke on not getting a response from the Secretary General of CARICOM in relation to the situation where TNT National was in Barbados and apparently TTPS went across there, put him in handcuffs and get his tail back in Trinidad and Tobago. That in itself there, something isn't right. And if there was some ambiguity, if there was some concern and you as a person, or even as an opposition leader, which she was at that point in time, wrote the office of the Secretary General, a response should have been given back if it wasn't given at all. And then in closing for me, we are still playing smart with foolishness by saying that Trinidad and Tobago is not a zone of peace. And let me define it for you. Taking it into context here from my extract, it says, this initiative, the zone of peace, was rooted in the desire to maintain regional stability and prevent foreign military intervention. It was first introduced in the 1970s within the Caribbean. That in itself, how is that we are not a zone of peace? We are playing with the words and indicating that we are not yet just to fall in alignment to push somebody else's narrative. I can safely say, well, okay, problems in this house here, this is not a zone of peace. But in the international context, and don't think that she doesn't know what she's doing. So now with that remarks, I'm like, nah, this isn't good. The only good thing for some students that was, the person mentioned to me that, she indicated that they are opening the floor, well, the UE campus in in South, and saying the CARICOM students are welcome. Yeah, good and all, good, yes. But again, when you go to those meetings and you speak the way in which the PM spoke, it pushes us back further. Because I'll leave you with this question. How is that when countries are negotiating with the EU, they see the EU as a bloc united? And when it comes to CARICOM countries, they look for one or two countries just to inveigle them to speak something else, and then CARICOM is weakened. What's your thoughts on the Prime Minister's speech?
A man who presided over the Treasury for the last 10 years, who increased gas 5 times in this country, come to lecture us about the little man. The little man. But you see, I have some questions for the member for Diego Martin Northeast. Because he talks about us pressuring the little man and the poor people. But Mr. Speaker, I have a list of cabinet recusals in my possession. I ask that my friends stop fear-mongering and spreading propaganda, Mr. Speaker, that we are only taxing, Mr. Speaker. That is absolutely untrue. A fine is not a tax. A fine is that you have a legal obligation under the law. If you break that law, the sanction is you will attract a fine. So I don't understand what they are telling us today, that we are not taking care of the small man. One of the first things we did in our budget while the minister was speaking was reduce super gasoline by $1. You all forget that? You all forgot that? One of the first things we did was repeal the dreaded property tax law. And one of the second things we did was repeal the dreaded TTRA legislation, Mr. Speaker. That is what we did. So miss me with the fake outrage when I come to talk about the small man. Miss me with that. Don't tell me about that. Mr. Speaker, gone are the days where you will have cabinet ministers recusing themselves 60, 70, 80 and sometimes 90 times, Mr. Speaker, from cabinet decisions because it benefits their own self, their friends or their family, Mr. Speaker. You see, none of us on this side, Mr. Speaker, would recuse ourselves from the cabinet when it comes to fiscal measures in the budget or finance bills. Because when we take decisions in the cabinet, Mr. Speaker, it is to take decisions for all of Trinidad and Tobago and not the select few. Not the select few, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this government, we are ensuring that we protect the people from the PNM and the criminals. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. President, with all due respect, they push themselves as the premier East Indian power.
Trinidad and Tobago's Attorney General issued a stark warning to what he called the country's wealthy 1% during the SOE debates in Parliament on Wednesday night. The former PNM Attorney General, now UNC Attorney General John Jeremy, warned that the prison cells of Tetron Barracks await the 1% if they behave as gang members or attempt to target him or the Prime Minister. He mentioned a 2017 interview with Anthony Bourdain. He mentioned US visas being revoked. He called out their ownership of Guardian Media and claimed they have taken over the PNM. Under parliamentary privilege, he referred to the 1% as a gang. But here's what I'm confused about. Jeremy made mention of the owners of Guardian Media, which is Ansa McCall. Just a few months ago, the UNC government was in front of the leadership of Ansa McCall, looking for their investment in the UNC's revitalization blueprint. So a few months ago, you were okay with them and wanted their money. But now, there's these wild accusations in Parliament. I can't tell if this is all for show and just politicians playing politics, drumming up class warfare for their base, or if it's real. I don't know. If the Attorney General has evidence of wrongdoing, then where are the charges? And if there's no evidence, then how could the Attorney General label law-abiding citizens running legitimate businesses, employing tens of thousands of people, as 1% gang members, while asking them to fund government initiatives? I'm very confused. My other question is, who exactly is the 1%? HDC is trying to hand out billions of dollars in new contracts. Are the contractors getting billions of dollars the 1%? Or they don't count? I've heard there may even be some ministers driving around in Porsches, and another UNC minister was charged relating to the import of a $2 million Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. So wait, are you guys the 1%? Anyways, by my record keeping, the UNC is now mad at the 1%, the PNM, independent senators, the Law Association, the Energy Chamber, CARICOM, Venezuela, nurses, protesters, and Kamala Prasad Bisesar says the country is a lawless dump where all of you are hypersexualized with pornography and alcohol. I think I'm just gonna go lie down. My head hurts.
Now this is exactly the case. A lot of people voted based on the policies and what was promised to them, only to have them do the exact opposite. Take a look at this video, guys.
So I see a man talking on TikTok. He said, we shouldn't feel betrayed because Kamala lied to us on the election trail and came into government and did something completely different. We should not feel betrayed. We should look at the state of the economy.
And you see that argument about not knowing how much money the Treasury had and blaming it on the previous government, saying that they wasted out all the money. That argument is utter nonsense. These people were in opposition. It was actually their job to keep the government at that point in time in check. In other words, if they don't know how much money Treasury had, then they weren't doing their job as opposition. So the promises that they made on their campaign trail was based on how much money they knew the economy already had in it. Let me know you guys in the comments.
The alarm bells are ringing and the people are speaking. Places where persons could have go and ventilate their issues via means of a protest no longer is available to them within portal speed. Because if you could recall, after budget or during budget, the government today, when they were in opposition, would have had plenty protesters. So you can't protest in certain areas where people believe it will be more effective. And now another SOE is coming into place. But hear this. When a society no longer believes in the tools that was meant to protect them, it should raise some concerns
Trinidad and Tobago, I've been with you either on the ground or in social media for over 5 years now, and I wanted to say thank you for listening. I've spent hundreds of hours volunteering, researching, explaining politics, crime, economics, and current events in the country, and I'm making some changes to my channel that I want to be transparent about. Under the PNM, much of the country was unhappy with things like the rising cost of living, the state of the economy, and historically high crime. So, last year, the country voted for change. On day one, the UNC appointed a PNM Attorney General. So much for change. Since then, the cost of living has gotten even worse, with new taxes and fees on just about everything. Billions lost in cancelled gas agreements with Venezuela. An endless state of emergency while crime continues to be out of control. Ministers hurling racial attacks online. Allegations of ministers funding their campaign with money from gang leaders. Kamala Prasad-Bisesar says Trinidad and Tobago is a lawless dump of a nation, and she thinks some of you are eat-a-food filth, in her words. PNM, independent senators, CARICOM, Venezuela, the Energy Chamber, the Law Association, nurses, protesters. She says there's something wrong with all of you, filth and grifters. Her right-hand man, Barry Padarath, says if you oppose the great UNC, you might be a racist. Am I filth, Kamala Prasad-Bisesar? Am I a racist, Barry Padarath? I think the time for being impartial is over. Going forward, my page will be branded with the Patriotic Front. I've been working to help build the PF for the past 5 years. I promise you, we're still building, and we're growing stronger every day. I don't want money, fame, or power, and I haven't taken even a penny from the party. My sole interest as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago is helping to improve the crime situation and move the country in a positive direction. I do not support the PNM with how they failed the country on crime over the past 10 years. I do not support the UNC with how they constantly attack and gaslight the population, blatantly lying, using violent, racist, and derogatory language while raising taxes and fees and costing the country billions of dollars in new trade agreements. The UNC did not exist in 1988. The PNM did not exist in 1955. Every new idea has its inception date. Every generation creates something new. The methods of the past are no longer working. I think that time for something new is now.
Enough of the double standards and enough of this government trying to convince the people of Trinidad and Tobago that what we are seeing with our own eyes is not happening. The government says that this extension of the state of emergency is about fighting crime. I don't believe it. And neither do many citizens who are watching what is unfolding in this country. Look at the timeline. On May 27th, citizens protested outside the DPP's office. That very same day, the government announced 15 no protest zones. Then nurses became more vocal, workers became more vocal, unions became more vocal. Citizens began demanding answers. And now, before the current state of emergency even expires on June 17th, the government is rushing to Parliament for another 3 months of extraordinary powers. You can call it a coincidence. I don't. The government says this is about crime. Let me ask you a simple question. Do you feel safer? Has crime been defeated? Has fear disappeared from our communities? Because if this state of emergency is working, why do you need another 3 months? And if it isn't working, why should the people of this country surrender another 3 months of their freedoms? The truth is that the people are asking questions. And instead of answering these questions, the government wants to attack the people asking them. Barry Padarath now says criticism of this government is rooted in hatred of the UNC, racism and prejudice. What nonsense. When nurses speak out about salaries, that's racism. When workers demand answers, that's prejudice. When citizens question government policy, that's hatred. No, it is called democracy. And what insults me the most is the attempt to rewrite history. We are told nobody protested for 10 years. Untrue. Nobody challenged politicians. Untrue. Nobody demonstrated outside officials' homes. Really? On March 28, 2015, the OWTU, led by Ansel Roche, protested outside the home of then Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Were they racist then? Were they extremists then? Then in November 2024, the same Ansel Roche led demonstrations outside the homes of then government officials, including Keith Rowley. Were they the enemies of the state then? Of course not. They were exercising their right to protest, because back then protest was acceptable when it suited the political narrative. Back then dissent was celebrated. Back then speaking out was considered democracy. But now that this government sits in office, suddenly criticism is hatred. Suddenly protest is intimidation. Suddenly the people are the problem. Well, I have news for this government. The people are not the problem. The people are the employers. The government works for the people, not the other way around. And no government should ever become so arrogant, so entitled, and so disconnected that it believes questioning authority is somehow an act of hostility. The people have a right to question. The people have a right to challenge. The people have a right to protest. And the people have a right to demand answers. This state of emergency was sold as a tool to fight crime. The government says this is about public safety. I believe the timing tells a very different story. And if speaking up for the people makes those in power uncomfortable, then they should get used to being uncomfortable, because silence is not democracy. Accountability is. This government may have the numbers in parliament, but the people still have a voice, and that voice is more powerful than any parliamentary majority, because governments come and go, politicians come and go, but the people remain. So when government stops listening to the people have a duty to speak louder. So speak. Question, challenge, demand answers. Hold those in power accountable. Refuse to be silenced. Because this country does not belong to politicians. It belongs to the people, and the people will be heard.
There comes a moment in every nation's story where silence is no longer diplomacy, it's surrender. So tell me, at what point do we admit Trinidad and Tobago has been carrying burdens that the region was all too happy to ignore? For entertainment purposes only. Disclaimer: I am not a geopolitical expert. This commentary challenges regional policy failures, not the people of any Caribbean nation. Trinidad and Tobago remains committed to regional unity, but unity must be backed by action, accountability, and shared responsibility. Let's chat Trinbago. Talks, declarations, and empty promises. When CARICOM meets crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Diplomacy filled the Hyatt, and crime still filled our morgues. How many more bodies will pile up before CARICOM's promises become protection? In April 2023, Trinidad and Tobago rolled out the red carpet for our Caribbean brothers and sisters. We fed them, we housed them, we paid the bill. Also, CARICOM could confront violent crime together. Every leader agreed. The Caribbean was being poisoned by guns, drugs, and the transnational gangs. And they acknowledged one more truth. Trinidad and Tobago faces the worst of it because of geography and proximity to the trafficking pipeline. Yet today I have to ask, did they forget everything they claimed to understand? For decades, Trinidad and Tobago has been the one sending aid, training regional forces, providing relief after hurricanes, stabilizing regional economies, and opening our doors to our Caribbean brothers and sisters, our neighbors, our family. We've always shown up. But now it seems that we're drowning in the fallout of a regional drug war, passing through our borders. Suddenly the region is silent. But worse than silence are the voices now telling us to stay neutral, while we, not them, are the ones holding strain. While all citizens are being the ones kidnapped and trafficked and unalived, while tourist confidence collapses and our international image takes hit after hit, while our young men are being recruited into a deadly economy that we didn't invite, while all shores choke under a crisis that benefits no one here except the criminals. Tell us, when did neutrality ever protect Trinidad and Tobago? Did diplomacy stop the gunshots that echo in our communities? Did polite silence intercept any shipment of arms? Did staying silent convince the traffickers to turn the boats around? We're told to hush and not rock the regional boat. Boats are sinking and we are the ones that are drowning. Our streets are raw with violence. And the cost is Trinbagonian lives. If our regional partners want quiet diplomacy, then maybe they should provide some assistance. Maybe then they could ask us to be quiet. Are we only useful when we are writing the check? Tourism-based countries like to speak big about regional unity. But would they feel comfortable if the cartels took root in their neighborhoods? If illegal drugs flooded their schools? If their youth were dying for product being shipped somewhere else? If hundreds of their citizens became collateral damage? Simply because they live between the source and the destination? Is CARICOM suggesting our crisis is just a failure in national security? Or is it the cruel reality that we are out-resourced and overwhelmed by a threat moving through our waters for markets beyond our shores? Let's not just pretend it's just our problem. Even CARICOM's own declaration recognized this, calling on the United States to join the Caribbean with the war on guns and drugs, because the gun has become the new drug. Those were their words, their recognition, and their commitment. But where's the cooperation inside CARICOM itself? We hosted the region's security meeting. But where's the region when security breaks down in Trinidad? Words do not stop bullets. Declarations don't seize firearms. Press releases don't dismantle cartels. Trinbago continues to bleed. We continue to fight a regional war on our shoreline. We continue to pay not just in conference prices, but in all lives. So we must once again ask loudly and without apology, when will CARICOM's commitment match Trinidad and Tobago's sacrifice? And how much more must we lose before the Caribbean shows up for us, the way we always showed up for them? Until next time, Trinbago. Bless. Watch and pray.
Grand rising and greetings, people. There are two things, right, and I'm making this public just the same way we would have been making many contents publicly pertaining to the past administration. There are two things I would never be doing in my life ever again. The 2025 general election that went would have been my third time in my life dipping my finger to vote. Right? The third time. The first time was for the PNM and them, that was under deceased Mervyn Manning's administration, which I believe to myself I made a great decision and a choice at that particular time, because there were so many things that was put in place by the then deceased Mr. Patrick Augustus Mervyn Manning. And I didn't regret making such a decision, because we all would have benefited. And when I say we all would have benefited, we all would have benefited as a nation under Mr. Manning's tenureship or reign. The two other times was for the UNC government. That was when they had lost it in 2015. Yeah. That is when the so-called claim that the election was rigged and it was stolen and PNM won. And then the third time was this time here, which was 2025 general election. I would have, for the third time, dipped my finger voting for the UNC party again. Right? I'll give you all a little piece of testimony of my history when it comes to politics and voting. Before that, I always standed an independent observer looking at the whole entire scenes. Right? But you see now with what I am seeing here, you're all starting to really remind me of the last administration. Now, keep this also in mind. For the people on that side, the fanatics on the UNC side, because I ain't a fanatic, I might lend my support to a particular group, but lending support to a group doesn't mean that one must sit down, listen, hear all the injustices and the foolishness or these dotish laws that are put in place, and we must just say silence and say nothing. I am not like that. If you all realize, you never see me outside campaigning with anybody walking behind no truck or walking with no yellow jersey or no red jersey to get nobody. As I stand always an independent observer, even though I would have lent my support. My support was lent on certain promises that was made by this government. And you see, when you make a promise and you blatantly come back in people's face and you do otherwise, that shows a lot. So never again in my life on this earth I will ever be voting for not one party. I don't care if it's a new, old, no, I ain't voting ever again. That is the end of me and voting there. That is one. Number two, never will I again advertise or encourage anybody to support any politician. None whatsoever. You can be who. You see this bullshit what taking place here? Right now, I stand where Ibrahim Traore stand. I stand where he stand. And for the longest while now, we seeing this fuckery continue to take place, whether red or yellow. Many yellow fans will jump and they will say this too. The PNM did it. I don't want to hear that. I really don't want to hear it, because it clearly shows that, as I say, a great portion of you Indians and Africans are totally mentally and spiritually enslaved. For all you were talking about the PNM and the PNM this and that, right? I could recall this for me. I am still waiting justice to see any politician be locked up. That was words of the present Prime Minister before she came into office. Up to now, I haven't seen one politician, especially Stuart Young or Buckman Imsbert. Why are not they on trial probably yet? Why? Because you see why? Let me tell you why. All holidays work together as one. And we know that. Despite how it may look out here in the streets to us, despite how all they might look how Philip Alexander cussing this one and cussing that one and making it seem, it's a big game already fixed. This is for the ones who in the back hole like stick breaking all their ears and all they can't wake. Right? I always had a thing with these politicians and this government thing. Governments change but the laws remain the same. You see these laws always upon on the people? It's draconian. It is unlawful, it is biased, and it is unfair. Why must we, the people, pay the PNM's debt after all they mash up the place financially? How could you leave it up to dishonest men and women who working in the TTPS? Because up to now I still have a ticket that was given to me biasly by a black Negro in the TTPS. A ticket that was biasly given to me. Tell me this something, Trinidad and Tobago. How this song? A police officer walk up to your car, see somebody in the front seat, ask a question such as, how it look like he now putting on his seatbelt so? I said, no big man, the man in so putting on his seatbelt. He pick up his backpack that was on his lap. When you walk in front of the car just so and had me to stop and mash up brakes. The youth man bag fall off and it fell on the ground. The youth man just stretch and pick it back up and play it on the lap. The dotish black police officer walk up and this is him. License and registration. I give the man my license. The man didn't tell me, he didn't ask me nothing. He didn't tell me, well, why going and get or what lower brake. Nothing like that. He just walked by the vehicle with my license, he came back with a fucking ticket and hand me and go on his way. How could you, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, put such authority in these individual hands who are dishonest? They are liars, they lie for no reason. And then you will have officers out there spitefully and willfully giving people tickets purposely to make them come off the road. This is all they plan. Or they're looking for a revolution for real, for real. And from now on, you see the videos I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be hitting everybody very hard. Trust in that.
We must never allow ourselves to forget the facts. And right now the facts are, out of the 408 days that this government has been in office, we have been under an SOE for 296 days. And in that time, they have detained 1,600 Trinidad and Tobago citizens, but have only managed to charge 320. And what about the other 80%? Who knows? They're just there hanging around. Now they claim that the murder rate for the year so far is 170. But according to websites that have been keeping track of the murder rate for years, it's actually south of 194. So state of emergency after state of emergency after state of emergency, and you all still can't update us on whether or not you all held the person that was threatening the age with a rocket launcher. Here's why I bring that up. You all quick to swoop in and arrest protesters as we under a state of emergency. You run down in Diego Martin and arrested the woman for saying something the whole country was thinking, as if the Venezuelan army would already listen to her and go by the Prime Minister's residence. But we know it's bullshit. You all simply wanted to exert power and to show her that you all were in charge. But while you all doing all of that, what happened to the rocket launcher guy? That's what I want to know. Where is he? What happened to him? This man that started this whole chain of events that stopped our Independence Day parade last year and seemingly stopping it this year too. Why are we not hearing about that? Or we still under a state of emergency? Crime not stopping. It's not slowing down. The country isn't safer. Where is the rocket launcher guy? Just lie after lie after lie after
They love when there was crime, when there was murder. The PNM loved that. Under their watch, we were having murders upon murders. Countless. Now the murder rate has dropped. They're not happy about that, but that is the reality. The murder rate has dropped intensely, and the little, dreads that you're seeing taking place, that too is going to come to an end. But people of Trinidad and Tobago, you all have to give this government a chance to fix this country. The PNM has taken this country down to nothing. And we need to understand that we have to have some patience. We need to work with our government because there's no other that can fix this country the way that our Prime Minister, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, is going to do it. So have no fear. Whatever is happening is for our benefit and our good. Don't be chained up by the PNM leadership. Don't take chain up. They're fooling around with you all. They're fooling around with your emotions. Do not allow them to take advantage of you.
What we have been experiencing with this particular government is an entire list of broken promises. Last year, they beat their chest, they beat the desk. We are going to increase the number of recruits by 1,000 officers in the TTPS. Madam Speaker, do you know that they did not recruit the 1,000 persons in this fiscal year that went by? They had the ordinary pass out of about 300 officers, Madam Speaker. We on this side advocated that there are several hundreds of SRP officers who are competent, who are experienced. Absorb them within the regular police service, Madam Speaker. They are in receipt of a remuneration package that is much less than the regular officers. It will be easier for us to absorb the SRPs into the system rather than go and recruit 1,000 officers, which you cannot do, and which they did not do, and which they will not do. It will take a UNC government to increase the officers in the TTPS service, Madam Speaker. It will take a UNC government.
Yesterday morning, Wednesday the 17th, at around 4:30 a.m. to around 5, I was assaulted and battered physically by some police. They bust my chin, it started to bleed. Like, to be honest, I didn't even want to do this video, but what made me do the video is just knowing that there's someone out there who probably went through the same whole situation, and because they don't have a platform, and because they don't really have a voice, or they feel like they don't have a voice, said, you know what, this is for everybody who may have went through some form of police brutality. The physical abuse is one thing, but I just feel like how mentally scarred I is knowing that, boy, when you see police, it could just mean more danger. And after going through that level of police brutality for no reason, for absolutely no reason, the narrative that Trinidad is not a safe space, and I once defended Trinidad 100% and say that, yo, we are a safe space, Trinidad is a good place, people are trying to build a negative narrative about us, and that we are safe to be in. I'm realizing I was defending a false narrative. And not until I got to be a victim of police brutality, I realized that this place could really and truly not be safe. If we are afraid of a group of people that does do crime and do wrong things, that does harm people and hurt people, and those people could end up going into jail and get justice to be served to them. And now we have to be afraid of a next group of people that could harm you, damage you, beat you, do wrong things, do crime to you, and not have to answer to no one, and still be free in society. Which group of people more scary? The first group is criminals who could do wrong things and they could end up in jail. The next group is a group of different people who do the same things and still have no repercussions. And the reason why this really disappoints me is because, dog, I was a civilian, dog. I never once claimed to be no bad boy, never once claimed to be no killer. On top of that, as a man, I have no criminal record. I just throw events, I throw parties, and I pay police every single event I have. I have police there, I pay police every single event. I pay police to trust the police with the lives of the people in my events and myself. How are these police the police that is abusing me? How are these the same police that beat me up, boy? How these are the police that bust my chin? And these are the things I will hurt as someone who will claim to be a patriot to the point where I will make a video that will get over 100,000 plus views talking about how Trinidad is a safe space, how Trinidad is a good space, how coming on to Trinidad, all that talk about crime and things, that not true. All that talk about brutality and everything not true. How I can defend Trinidad so much. This is what Trinidad police do to me. But if we have to fear from the criminals and fear from the police, who we really safe from? I feel hurt just knowing that this is the same country I defend numerous occasions to say, but Trinidad is a safe space. It's a twin island paradise, and I still love my country. I still find it's a twin island paradise.
So some $1 million contracts get awarded and thing, and you know, people vex and all kind of thing. Now they say, now these men, they never build no house. How them get them contract? It's not looking fair. I think Stuart Young and some other ministers, they put out some statements and things saying, you know, this thing not above board and stuff like that now, boy. But my thing is, right, where all these ministers was when them was in power and people like Mr. Foster Cummins' name was getting called up in something with his wife get awarded some contracts and thing. Where were these ministers when them was in charge? You see, the thing is, right, the system set for them to do that. They're not changing that. But they will come out here every day and beat iron and make noise for John Public to get angry and say, look, and point finger and say, look, no, let Ramesh and sons and whoever them is, let them get through, it's them turn. That is how the system set, nobody changing it. You understand me? So why it seems as though these politicians, all their agenda is just to come out here and stir up people and get people angry and say, you know what I mean, look what them doing and look what them do. But nobody implementing the changes to fix the system. Because it's set and it's good. It's nice for all you. Miss we with them kind of argument and thing, but stop trying to rile up the public on the stupidness. People fed up. We don't like to see the money jumping up. When the man link the coffee partner, we name David Lee or whatever the man name is. We all know that nothing will not come out of that. You understand me? All you up there using a system built for all you to get you. And coming out here and trying to get me angry and make me feel like if something wrong now boy with the system. And you know, how we vex and say, yes, look. But it's the same thing going on and the system not changing. Nobody implementing a change to fix that. That incident where somebody could link the partner, nobody ain't changing it. But all you're pointing fingers right through and saying, look them. UNC do like when PNM do it, and PNM do like when UNC do it. Well, John Public do like when none of you do it. You understand me? Fix the system and stop trying to make people angry. Right? John Public, all it done know the scene. The intention is to upset we, and we cannot stay angry. We have to try to make this place a better place by implementing the necessary changes that we could point out and see is a fault in the system. Big up all yourself now. And have a nice day, right? There you go.
Watch all the politicians are one of the greatest set of transformers that have in the world, you know. All the politicians are some of the greatest transformers that have. One of the what people support. All the coming in by the house. All the begging like Lazarus. This is the transformation of people. Here how they just transform it, they just come by the house begging like Lazarus. They beg for your support. Beg for your support. When you give them that support, Papa, and they get that power, whoa, they transform one time. You know they turn into Pharaoh. One time they transform into Pharaoh. They want to oppress the same people and them who put them up there in possession. They want to lock them up. They want to do them all kind of things. That's what I tell all these transformers. All they're not real. Right? All they're politicians, all they're not real. All these transformers. All these transform very quick. From Lazarus to Pharaoh. No power Lazarus, power Pharaoh. All the be careful.
What I would say is that, I mean, I was quite taken aback. I was quite surprised. And to a large extent, I was quite embarrassed because I really could not believe that following what has transpired in the last 10 months, as it relates to Venezuela, as it relates to CARICOM, I am sure every Trinidadian and Tobagonian was looking forward to a statement by the Prime Minister that would demonstrate some iota as it relates to unity. And interestingly enough, the entire region was looking forward to this CARICOM meeting, and they were really looking forward to hear what Trinidad and Tobago had to say.
But tonight I am calling and giving a mandate to the residents of San Fernando to come out and vote. When that date is announced, come out and vote for every one of the representatives of the United National Congress. We understand that PNM is the problem, but UNC is the only solution. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
A few moments later.
On August 14th, Marcus Gadari will be representing Marabella South, Mr. Bella.
Tell them we come in. Everybody get on
Are you a Trinidadian in the building? Oh my God, thank you so much, guys. I love you to the moon and back. You know, I appreciate you so much. Also, all the Caribbean people, I really appreciate you. So guys, in today's video, Trinidadians, they have come out to comment on what their leaders normally say. You know, according to the videos and the clips that I have attached here, you can clearly see that there is something that is happening. And as much as leaders are speaking, you know, as much as statements are being released into the public, and as much as promises are being made, I can tell you, many Trinidadians are actually asking many questions, and, you know, they are like, are these leaders really listening to us? Because you see, most politicians, they tend to explain things in such a way that it just comes out as if they are working for themselves and not for the interest of the many ordinary Trinis. And that being said, many of Trinidadians, they are still dealing with the same problems every day because they're not really sure if their leaders are listening to them, especially when they are on these campaign trails. That is the moment that many people come out and speak and tell them what they do want when they get elected. But again, it seems that everything is the opposite of what they said. So today I want us to talk about that particular issue. And I can tell you that these particular statements from the leaders, the response from the citizens, and the growing gap between the people and those in power, I can tell you we need to talk about that. Because most of the time when these leaders come to the front line and they actually put an expectation to the people, and at the end of the day, these people will want answers, they will want clarity, will want to feel that their concerns do matter so much in the table. So sometimes a statement that sounds reassuring to a politician may actually sound completely different from somebody who is watching from home, from just anywhere around Trinidad and Tobago. And I can tell you that's where the itchish begins. So many a times you might find a leader saying that they are working, they are taking actions, they are protecting the citizens, but in the other way, the citizens respond by telling that, we've had those things before, and it's normal for us. We are not seeing any difference. And it's not just us, it's the entire community. You see, anyway, many Trinidadians, for many Trinidadians, the issue is not only what their leaders are saying, it's whether those words match their actions. Yeah, I think that's the most important point, because you see, leadership is not only about announcements, it's also about trust, by the way. And trust is built slowly, it doesn't come really fast. So if you look at both sides of the story, the leadership and also the good people of Trinidad and Tobago, on one side, you'll actually have this feeling that leaders have a responsibility to make decisions. But again, some of these decisions are very, very difficult, and they require time, they require patience, and of course, some will have to involve informations that the public may not immediately see or hear, or even eavesdrop about it. Because you see, most of the time, governments tend to argue that they are actually balancing the challenges they have, and that is why you see some delays. They're trying to balance security with the economy, with the public service, with the national stability, mixing everything in one basket. But again, you see, the citizens, they cannot understand that. For them, they know that there is a budget, there is something that, things needs to move, they are really concerned, and these concerns are very valid, because most of them, they just want to see actions, results, and the impact of all these things that the government is doing. So most of the times you will find that the citizens don't really feel satisfied, and when the citizens are not satisfied, for leaders, you cannot actually ignore that. Anyway, we've seen Trinidadians talking about one of their biggest challenges in politics, which is the gap in communication. Because at one point you'll see a leader saying that he or she believes that they have explained everything and the citizens now understand and they'll be patient. But if you go to the ordinary person in Trinidad and Tobago and ask them the same thing that their leader talked about, they even explain it in a way that it's really confused until you are like, oh, so the information never reached home at the end of the day. So so that will result to a situation whereby they'll actually feel like they're unheard, and they lose that confidence. So there's a clip that I was watching yesterday about these communication coaches, and they were telling us that, or in the video, she was telling people that, you see, when you have a misunderstanding with somebody, when you have a conflict with somebody, 90% is always the miscommunication. 10% is the issue. Otherwise, if people communicated well and understood each other, then the world will be beautiful. So at this point, Trinidadians are actually talking, debating, questioning, demanding accountability. But again, in that mixture of everything, there are those that do support, the leaders themselves. They support the government. They support, as much as people are demanding for that accountability for them, they're like, oh man, you need to understand that Rome was not built in a day. Anyway, man, I mean, the world is just beautiful with the division, and not really like a bad division, but the arguments. At the end of the day, we disagree to agree, right? So when we see that people cannot agree, then that tells us that yeah, things need to be talked about, and so that at least we may get to know if people are understanding or not. So Trinidad is having a conversation about trust, to their leaders. And yeah, most of the times you will see the government passing policies. You see, there is even this policy that whenever there are riots or peaceful protests in Trinidad and Tobago, they have actually marked some specific points whereby you are supposed to be like 500 meters away from that particular point or area or center. So you see, those are governments passing. That's a government passing a policy, and most of the time these leaders make speeches, but the opinion is normally shaped by the experiences, and you'll find that a person does not get to judge any leadership from a podium. Most of them, they do judge. They actually judge it from what they see around them. That is now the leaders, the government. And if you, okay, by judging a leader by what they see around them, is probably their neighbor, their family, their workplaces, everyday life. People just try to observe, and that's how they will judge you. If you're somebody that you uplift the people around you, oh, you'll be loved. But then if they see that the people around you are also suffering, then they'll be like, if they're suffering, that means that we are not even going to be better anytime soon. So that's why many leaders face the biggest challenges, and it's very hard for them even to win any argument. But again, convincing people that their actions are actually making a difference, oh, it's something very hard. Because, when people feel disconnected, any statement, any speech that a leader will actually say, it will be questioned in one way or the other. Any announcement that they will ever make, it will have to be analyzed bit to bit to bit, and even more confusion in between. Every promise that they will ever do in anywhere, it will always be compared to the past. Okay, last time you said this, did he really fulfill the promise? And that is the reality of many leadership and our politicians that they are facing today. So to be fair, of course, not every criticism means that a leader is failing. There is something that we call positive criticism, and at the same time, not every government not every government explanation means that people will actually agree. Democracy is built on the rule that we disagree to agree, and many people also in a democratic country, they are allowed to question, leaders and the health of their society in one way or the other. So the most important thing here is whether there is real communication that is able to be understood by everybody in the community, the learned and unlearned, just everyone, So many Trinidadians, want to know, like, what will really happen next? Will their leaders really adjust to this? Are they going to explain to them in a way that they'll be able to understand it clearly? And what about fellow Trinidadians? Are they feeling included in this conversation or not? Because at the end of the day, if you see a country that is not only led by politicians, it can as well be shaped by the good people of the country or island. So people are sometimes feeling this frustration, especially when they see, so many statements, when they actually they talk about these relationships between leaders and the ordinary people, and if that relationship, or if they are close, the leadership and the ordinary people, then most of the time you'll actually see trust being really, really strong. But if the relationship between the police, the leaders, and in this case we are talking about the leaders versus the people, so if it's weak, then I can tell you anything that will ever happen. If a leader just stands in the podium and talks to the people, they'll actually question it. They'll not believe it. For me, I don't know what you think about that, because that's what normally happens in our society. Do you think that our leaders are failing to connect to the people? What do you think about that? Because most of the time, when somebody is looking for votes, they can even sleep in your house, but wait until they are sworn in. Oh my God, it's like they don't even know you in the first place. They change contacts. I mean, you'll never talk to them. Oh my God, these people are crazy. Anyway, let me know in the comment section, like, what do you really think about this particular topic of ours today? For me, yeah, it's just something that is really relatable in our everyday life, and yet the Trinidadians here have come out, they have spoken, and they have told us, they have spoken their mind actually, and I know you've listened. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate that you come back every day and watch a video. And by watching this video, you'll be supporting me and a couple of more other people that depend on me. And kindly see you tomorrow. Bye bye.